Shalom. Last week in Parashat Bo, we talked about time, and we talked about the origin of time. We talked about how, in a sense, time really begins in Parashat Bo, chapter 12, when Israel was entrusted with the power of and with the recording and establishment of the sacred patterns of time, with the commandment, last week's parsha, of this month shall be for you the first of all the months. And in that regard, we talked about how mastery over time, how escaping the confines of time, the hamster wheel, if you will, is a prerequisite for the freedom of leaving Egypt. Well, Israel, did leave Egypt, and when Israel left Egypt, she did so through the sea of reeds, Yam Suf. This week's Torah portion of Parashat Beshalach features, beginning with chapter 15, it's chapter 15 verses 1 through 18, the spellbinding, amazing, and transcendent poem known in Hebrew as Az Yashir, the Song of the Sea. According to tradition, this was a seminal experience. This passage through the sea, indeed, the verse immediately preceding the song states, Israel saw the great hand that Hashem inflicted upon Egypt, and the people revered Hashem, and they believed in Hashem and in Moshe, his servant. This joy that Israel felt at this event was unparalleled, and the experience was so totally transformative in totality on an individual as well as on a national level, and apparently on a global level, because our sages teach that every single gathering of water, every body of water in the world, from the rivers and the lakes to the wells to drinking glasses, all the water in the world split at that time, indicating that the entire world was witness to and aware of the event of the splitting of the sea. And so much is taught about this experience, but all the words seem to be somewhat inadequate. We are taught, for example, that when Hashem revealed himself at the sea, it was first the righteous women who recognized him, and the concept, the experience of what it was like walking through the columns of the sea, the walls of water, on dry land the entire night, and how a woman would be walking with her crying baby's hungry, and she would reach out, she would extend her hand into the walls of water, and she would grab a fruit, an apple or a pomegranate, and feed the child, walking on the dry land, and how the sea was divided into lanes. And each tribe walked through its own lane, but yet there were windows in the walls of water that enabled them to see each other. And the teaching, for example, of how the most lowly and humble, ordinary maidservant had such a level of prophecy, she saw everything so clearly. That she saw more than did Ezekiel, the prophet, who of course saw the divine chariot and the new temple, but yet the most average, regular person had a greater prophetic revelation. And in fact, the sages teach us that even fetuses, the unborn children in their mother's womb, all sang this song. So there were just innumerable wonders at this event, and this incredibly transcendent, palpable joy. But what exactly was the source of this great and unparalleled joy that was felt by the people of Israel at the event of Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea? Was it simply relief at being delivered? Was it satisfaction in witnessing the defeat of the enemy? Actually, amazingly, our holy masters teach that in truth the song really had little to do with that moment at all, with what was happening all around them, but rather the main aspect of the song was the joy that they felt in a breakthrough in understanding that they received at that moment. It was a perception that they had. It was so clear to them that they reached, on account of what they were seeing, they reached this level of understanding that one day there will be the Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead, That's an event that we believe in. The Torah teaches us that one day when God wills it, the dead will come back to life. And this event, the event of the splitting of the sea, was a hint to them. They understood it from what they were seeing all around them. There's some sort of relationship between the nature of the splitting of the sea, between this song and this event and the resurrection. They had somehow a small taste, a foreshadowing of that great future promised event. And clearly, more than anything, this was a passage from one side to the other. And as such, it actually resembles a birth. Our traversing the sea is reminiscent of a passage not only through a corridor, but through the birth canal, not only between life awaiting them as a free people to serve God on the other side, and between the death that was Egypt, but it's also a passage between one plane of existence and another. You know, the Song of the Sea is recited daily, each morning, as part of the daily prayers of Israel, and actually it has been accorded a certain preeminence in its importance in our liturgy, to the extent that we are taught, that whoever recites the Song of the Sea each day with joy and earnest will merit to recite it in the world to come, the coming world as well. As we've just learned, the song is actually about a future event. And this whole idea of the intimation of a passage between one plane of existence and another, you know, that there exists this connection between the Az Yashir, the Song of the Sea, and our belief in the fundamental principle of the resurrection of the dead that will occur when God decrees its time has come. This connection is seen not only in the tradition that we just cited, that whoever recites this song joyously in this world will merit to recite it in the next world, but also in the idea expressed by our sages that the Song of the Sea itself is one of the proofs found in the Torah, albeit couched as an illusion, a proof to the future resurrection. This is a belief that we cherish that is not taught explicitly, and this is a mystery. It's not taught explicitly, but it is alluded to, and this is one of the illusions. Proof to the future resurrection that it will occur. How do we know? Because the verse which is read in English here in the beginning of chapter 15, which is commonly translated as, "Then Moshe and the children of Israel sang this song to Hashem, and they said the following." That verse actually in Hebrew reads, Az Yashir Moshe Uvnei Yisrael et Ashira Hazot L'Hashem, which reads, then Moshe and the children of Israel will sing, which is future tense. And this teaching, which sees this whole concept as an allusion to the resurrection, is not only based on the word Yashir, which is future tense of singing, as opposed to then sang Moshe and the children of Israel, then Shar, but Yashir in the future. It's not only based on this word, Yashir, which is will sing in the future tense, but even more so, actually, studying the words of the sages, the linchpin of the teaching is the fact that the verse begins with the word Az, just seen as even more important than the word Yashir, because the word Az, which we're translating here as then, actually can be read as then, but it can also be read as then, meaning it carries the connotation of both past and future. Could go either way. Then it happened, or then it will happen. Thus, in a way, this magnificent passage through the sea seems to be like a corridor through time, linking past and future generations. Then Moshe and the children of Israel did sing, or will sing, then they sang, then they will sing. The imagery of passage through such a corridor is very evocative, because we're all going, aren't we? All the time, always from one place to another. Now, those of you who are old enough to remember, test your late 60s television viewing, how varied and rich it might have been, your late 60s television experience. You might remember a 1966-1967 American science fiction TV series called The Time Tunnel, which actually was written around a theme of time travel adventure. The show was creator-producers Irwin Allen's third science fiction television series, released by 20th Century Fox and broadcast on ABC. It actually ran for only one season of 30 episodes. The show, The Time Tunnel, Lee Merriweather was in it, also James Darren. It was about Project Tick-Tock. Project Tick-Tock was a top-secret U.S. government effort to build an experimental time machine known as the Time Tunnel, due to its appearance as a cylindrical hallway. The base for Project Tick-Tock was a huge hidden underground complex in Arizona, 800 floors deep and employing over 36,000 people. In the show, time travel was facilitated by time being portrayed as a static continuum, accessible at any point through the time tunnel as a corridor spanning its infinite reaches. When Senator Clark saw an image of the Titanic on the image screen in the course of episode 1, he was told by Dr. Swain that he is seeing, quote, the living past, and Althea Hall is told by Tony Newman that the past and the future are the same. And there's a voice that's intoned, voiceover, at the beginning of every episode. It goes like this. Two American scientists are lost in the swirling maze of past and future ages during the first experiments of America's greatest and most secret project, the Time Tunnel. Tony Newman and Doug Phillips now tumble helplessly toward a new fantastic adventure somewhere along the infinite corridors of time. But the splitting of the sea and our passage through it is actually the true time tunnel, expressing the remarkable, fundamental and compelling foundational belief of the resurrection. I think that our passage through the corridor of the Sea of Reeds isn't a one-time experience. It's a constant backdrop as our unfolding lives are taking place. Actually, we are always there. It's where we live. We live on a dry bed of faith in the midst of a howling sea. We're always in passage through time, indeed towards a fantastic new adventure. And the Torah's use of the word az here in this verse is the hinge. Then, the future, or then the past, could go either way. No wonder tradition teaches that this is a proof of Tchiyat HaMetim, of the resurrection. No wonder we are guaranteed that whoever recites this shirah, this song, with joy in this world, will merit to recite it in the world to come, because what do you think is the difference as these two worlds are moving together? The iconography of this open corridor of the dry bed of the sea is much more significant than we realize. It was not only the arena for this great passage and for this particular unparalleled revelation of God's greatness, but the corridor is actually where we live our lives. We're right there in that time tunnel, in the real infinite corridor of time, nourished on this faith that was so profoundly felt there that a woman was able to feed the fruit of this faith to her children as they were passing through, that an yet unborn child was able to sing this, that the most lowly and humble person was able to achieve a greater understanding of God's relationship with us than later did Ezekiel. This was indeed the birth experience of the Jewish people, but that experience is continuing constantly. And the main aspect of that corridor, that birth canal, the experience of that passage was faith. This great and overwhelming dose of reality that was so clear to them that even unborn children experienced it. Lowly, humble maids experienced such great prophetic knowledge. A mother was able to feed her child that faith, all of it. That faith was demonstrated then. That faith was itself the provisions that we need in our own lives as we traverse through this corridor. And occasionally we also catch fleeting but clear glimpses of God in our lives. So of course the ordinary maid saw everything, and of course everyone was able to see and perceive the true nature of reality, that really there is no separation. Separation is only an illusion. It's a thin membrane that separates between this world and the next. And this faith, a woman who nourished her child, and these isles of water that separated the tribes of Israel but allowed them to progress apace and yet see each other, because we all progress in our faith through the corridor of this tunnel of the time of our lives. We do so knowing and strengthening our faith that this is not the end. That's the whole idea of this song, that not only this is not the end, this not only isn't this all there is, we haven't even started yet. This is nothing. We haven't seen anything yet. This isn't even real. That world, the world of the resurrection, that's the real world. And what they perceived was a faith beyond faith. It's a vision. It's the source of true joy. That life, the soul, is eternal. That's the lesson of this week's Torah portion. That's the lesson of the birth of Israel into the world and of our constantly moving lives towards this great revelation, towards the one true reality, which is eternity. Then Moshe and the children of Israel will sing this song.